everyone, you're listening to the Tea with Tanya podcast, and I'm your host, Tanya Ambrose. I'm a public health professional by day and your average tea-loving millennial and content creator by night. My goal for this podcast is to share public health stories, self-love and wellness tips to educate and empower and to promote positive living. This podcast is here to serve you. Join me in the tea tasting room to see what I have brewing for you. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Tea with Tanya podcast. And today I am joined by a very special guest. Yes, I know I said it with all my guests, but this one is someone that I've been watching, for the last few months on my Instagram. And it's a pleasure to have her here. And we're going to talk about all things doula, postpartum, everything in between. So welcome, Yone. Am I saying it right?
It's Yone.
Yone.
Y''N''A. Thank you.
I have to make sure I get it right because my name is 5 letters and people like Tanya, so many different things. It's like Tanya.
And then as Black women, we have to correct them every single time. Every single time. Get it right.
Yes, welcome to the Tea with Tanya podcast. Thank you for taking time out of your day.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
Thank you. Tell my audience a little bit about yourself before we get into today's episode.
Okay. Well, I'm Yone. I'm originally from New York. I've been living.
Really?
Yeah. I'm originally from Westchester County, New York.
Wow.
So I live right outside of White Plains. I'm a suburban girl. A stone throw to the city, a 30-minute drive to the city. So I have the best of both worlds. I went to school in Virginia. I lived there. I finished high school there and did 2 years of college at Virginia State. I've been a resident of Georgia, Atlanta area for over 20 years now. I moved here in 1998. I have my degree in graphic design, art, and a focus on graphic design. And I am a birth doula. I am a postpartum doula. I am currently certifying to become a prenatal and postnatal fitness specialist. I am the graphic designer and social media specialist, as well as a founding member of the Atlanta Doula Collective. And I am also a community partner with Sister Song's Birth Justice Fund.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, look at me. I'm learning something new today. I didn't know you're from New York. I'm from Antigua, as you guys know, but I was living in New Jersey, New York for my first 6 years of living in this country. So
nice.
It's kind of interesting to know you're from New York. New York.
Yeah, I am. So that's where you hear the very directness and accents and, all of that. It comes with a lot of stuff. But I also embrace the southern part of it, too. I love being in the South. And it's good living. I love to be with the nature. It's good weather.
Yes, definitely.
And excellent prices.
I was just telling my sister this morning, I'm like, I cannot go back to New York, New Jersey, because it's just from the weather alone, it's just not going to work for me. Like the snow 10, 20 feet or inches, whatever snow, it's not going to work for me.
Yeah, I was there last week and I was just like, nah, the way these bones and my blood is set up, I just really cannot do it. I need a little more extra something and some good iron to be up there. Yeah, it's not it.
But yeah, as you said in your intro, you're a birth and postpartum doula. And you guys should know, if you haven't known yet, I don't know what you guys are doing, my teacups, but I'm a doula as well. But Yone, she does really, really great work in this community. Like I said, I'm married her. So tell us, for those of us who don't know what a doula is, what is that a doula?
The role of a doula. A role of a doula, to me, is someone who supports women in the birth space before, during, and after birth in a non-medical way. So that can mean physically, comfort measures, spiritually, mentally. They play a role as a birth coach and sometimes an advocate. And I say advocate loosely because we do not speak for women in the birthing space, but we empower women to advocate for themselves. And so we advocate for them in certain spaces, but it's more so behind the scene and just really empowering them to advocate for themselves and telling them and explaining to them that they do have options and reminding them of what those look like and how they can utilize them.
Okay. So for me, I became a doula about a year ago. And prior to that, my sister, who had my niece when she was 20 weeks pregnant, she had a 50-50 chance of the baby surviving. And they were leaning more towards the termination aspect of her pregnancy. And me being young and naive, not knowing, what a doula is or even what advocacy meant. I was the young little big sister, as they call it. Trying to curse everybody out. If we got another 50%, why not lean towards the one that could be a better outcome?
Absolutely.
And it wasn't until I got older and went to school I realized, that I was advocating for my sister during that time. We called her our miracle baby because she did survive.
Yes.
She's here, like 10 years later. But, then I was just thought I was being the unruly sister cursing these doctors out. But I was advocating for my sister, I believe. But it wasn't until I went to school for public health when all these different mortality rates become amongst African Americans that I like, I'm going to become a doula. Someone told me what it was. I didn't know. I said, doula, what is that? Did my research. I'm like, okay, it's something I can do right out of school until I, get to my end goal. So what is your journey, or what made you become interested in this field?
I was very interested in it. So most people, let me say it like this. I got an email, right? So this is a little while, I'm telling my age. I got an email from a good friend of mine. It was Hotmail. So that tells you what it was. Okay. And I was in my childbearing years. So I was having babies. And my sister friend, her name is Erica. She emailed me a spread of Erica Badu. And she was like, it was a spread, I think it was Source magazine, if I'm not mistaken. And in the magazine, it was like, she said I could so see you doing that. So that was my first time understanding what a doula was. It was through Erica Badu's spread. And I was like, that's so dope. But of course, there's a lot of women doing it now in my Atlanta Doula Collective. I don't know how they do it. They have babies and they are going to births. That was not my reality. I did not want to juggle that. So it was definitely something I was interested in. I had my own babies and I did have successful births, and I didn't have a lot of trauma during my births.
Okay.
But what I did experience is that I did not know my options. My births were not empowered. I went in there like, whatever you tell me to do, because I just want me and my baby to come out safe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was just kind of I educated myself. I read the books and the motherhood books and things like that. But I did not realize the amount of options that there were in having a baby. That now I know it, but I didn't know that then. And I had my first son my first baby in 2001. I had my second in 2008 and my third in 2011. So I have 5 children. Obviously, I gave birth to 3 and I have 2 bonus sons. So that was that. During that time, I used to watch The Baby Story all the time. And it was so funny because, again, I'm going to age myself. I was on Instant Messenger through Hotmail. And every day, like my friends they were at their corporate jobs and I was at home, and I would hop off and they'd be like, when I got back, I could see the whole thread and was like, where'd they go? And it's like, she's probably watching The Baby Story. And I was. And I was just amazed about the water births and things like that. But I just thought it was so out of reach. I never saw any brown women on those shows. And I just thought that was out of reach. I thought that was a white woman thing.
Right.
Fast forward full speed ahead. I'm a girl's girl. So I always had several friends. And my friends would always call me before I learned how to put my boundaries up. My friends would always call me, and I mean all day long. And I would manage the household. I would design. I'm a graphic designer, so I would design. I work from home. I would manage a household, and I would still be taking these calls of these, 6-figure women.
Right.
And I was like, you might need to get paid for this. This is a lot of energy. So I took a coaching class. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. But in that moment, that was when, I don't know if you want to say Holy Spirit, or whatever, but something bigger than me was like, yeah, you could be a coach, but you need to be a birth coach. And it just right then and there, it was at 2000 and I think it was 16 or 17. And so I had an aha moment. And at that time, divine timing, my husband was like, what do you want for Christmas? This was like October.
Right.
And I said, I really want to do this doula class because that coaching thing was not it. That coaching women was not it. So he was like, fine. There was a class in November. It was hardly any classes I could find online at the time. I went with Womb Wise through Doula.
Oh, great. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So she was awesome. And I was supposed to do the November class, but we didn't have it together by then. So I did the January class.
Right.
I took the donor class. I fell in love with it. At the time, I did not know what the mortality rate. So I know that I was called, to do this work. I did not know what the mortality rate was for Black women or anything. I was right before then, I was in 7 Under, and there was a sister there. and we kept staring at each other. It was like a kindred vibe. And so before she left, I said, sis, do I know you? And she was like, no, do you do birth work? And I was like, no, but I'm about to take my training in January. She was like, well, call me when you take your training because I'm starting an on-call service. That woman was Sakisa Berry. She's a midwife. She's a traditional midwife. I called her, and that was before the Atlanta Doula Collective was the Atlanta Doula Collective. So once I got out of training, I was able to have hands-on. She created a space through her contacts and her birth work where Black women were able to go into these spaces and support women. We were doing it for $100. It was barely, at first we were doing it for like just gas money.
Yeah.
And then we started doing it for like $100. And then it was like, all right, everybody was like really on it. And it was through her orientation that I saw a documentary. Oh gosh, Lord, that's going to come to me. But the documentary took my breath away. It was talking about the mortality rate for Black women. Inside of that documentary, one of the major midwives in Atlanta was Marsha Ford. Which was funny, I saw her and she was also the first midwife I ever did my birth with. So when I saw her, I was like, I know you from a documentary. And she was like, yeah, that was me. So I did my first birth with her. It was a water birth. And it was amazing. And I was hooked then. I loved it. And here we are.
Here we are.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk a little bit about the options, the birth option. Because I think now, from my perspective, from what I'm seeing, the doula world is getting bigger and bigger. And
everybody knows what it is now.
Right? But still, some people don't know that they still have options. So what are some of the options that we have, especially as African Americans, just in general?
I mean, there are major options and minor options. The minor ones are you don't even have to wear, if you don't want to wear that ugly old gown, you could order something nice off of Amazon. The bigger options are if you don't want your child to have all those different vaccinations, you know, it's not for us to say, for you to say whether you get a vaccination or not, but we let you know that you can opt out, you know what I mean? And you don't have to do that. Other options are you can say no, or you can even ask the questions and have a dialogue with your doctors. But the biggest thing is you need to have a birth plan or a birth preference plan. And with doing that whole process, I tell my clients and my couples, when you go through the birth preference plan, it's not a solid plan, but it's a great way for you to educate yourselves as parents and knowing the different things that you're able to do.
To have some direction.
And to say, you know, that I want delayed cord cutting, you know what I mean? Because that is better for my baby, you know, and making sure my baby gets all the blood, the good blood. And that's like that placenta is just an amazing organ. And so making sure that your baby gets everything. We didn't know in the movies in Hollywood, they would cut it right away. You know what I mean? And, you know, as you go through your different trainings and you get to talk to midwives and things like that. I didn't know that. But when I went to training, I learned that, you know, you can wait till the cord stops pulsating and turns gray. And then you clamp it, of course, unless there's an emergency, like the cord is around the baby's neck or something like that. So, you know, these are things that parents didn't know.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree.
Yeah. So options like that, options to say, no, I want to wait for intervention. Or no, options like I don't have to run straight to the hospital like Hollywood showed us. You know, I can labor at home as long as possible. You know what I mean? And that's what I encourage my clients.
All right. So I want to shift gears a little bit and I'll come up to another question. We spoke about what a birth doula is. What is the role of a postpartum doula? That's also a big thing now, especially in the media recently. So what exactly is a postpartum doula? What's the role?
The role of a postpartum doula is very, very large. Okay. It's really big. It does not look the same for everyone. I have not had the same experience with each family, but a postpartum doula goes in and she pretty much is somewhere in between a granny, a mother, and an auntie. Okay. But with the education, with the training. And so she's going to go in. She does anything from light housework to washing dishes to teaching newborn care to educating about postpartum care. She is definitely the advocate for preparation. With postpartum care, what I noticed is, well, first of all, with postpartum care is where those numbers for mortality for Black women, it shows up in postpartum more so than it does the birth space. Okay. So that's where we're losing our moms is during postpartum. We only get a 6 weeks checkup.
Yeah.
After we give birth. That's the only thing. Once we get that 6 weeks checkup, it's not even thorough, if I remember correctly. You know what I mean? It's not thorough at all. So a postpartum doula is also reminding you, just like in birth, to really be in tune with your body. She's another coach to just really listen to what your body is telling you. She's also a constant reminder that it takes 8 to 12 months for your body to heal, your hormones to get back in balance. And so, back in the day, the midwives and the grannies used to say, stay in the house for 90 days. Our world is just not set up for that anymore. So now, we're really begging you to stay in the house for, rest and lay down and stay in the house for 6 weeks to 40 days instead. So yeah, postpartum doula, it's a vast scope of work that she does. I've washed a woman's hair. I've twisted her hair. I've gone with the idea of, okay, this is what I'm going to do and pre-planned and got there. And my client is in tears and her house is a mess.
Right.
And so while I say light housework, that's not what she needed. So I went in and rearranged and made things flow and put stuff together because that's what she needed. You know what I mean? And, we're not the help, so if you walk with authority and you know who you are, then you don't take offense to, that type of energy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you know that every woman needs something different. And then I've noticed that the moms that you have to help because they want to do everything and they want to prove to you that they know how to do everything. You know what I mean? And they do not know how to sit their tail down and get the help and receive the help. So, so that for me is the harder thing because you have the moms that's like, I do need help and you can see clearly, but then you have the moms that still try to show up very powerfully. And it's like, I'm here to help you. What can I do? How can I serve you?
So I do want to ask, because I was listening to something a while back and I remember it was something along the lines of postpartum doula, but it's not only for the babies, but mostly for the mothers, like you just mentioned.
That's the thing. I'm not a nanny.
You're right.
I'm not a nanny. I'm there for newborn support. But what I often have to let moms know is I'm really here for you. You know what I mean? And I'm making sure that you are feeling supported and that you are feeling educated in newborn care, postpartum care, breastfeeding. And then a big thing that we do is refer out. So postpartum doula will refer out. So you have to make sure. I'm very blessed because I've always had the Atlanta Doula Collective. And so with the Atlanta Doula Collective, there are women that wear so many different hats. Just like you're a birth doula, right? But you may have areas where you might have an herbalist background, or you may have a yoga background, or you may have you know what I mean? Yeah. So these different women show up different ways. So I have a list of women that are resources that if I'm with my client and she's like, my baby's not latching, I'm working with her, I have enough sense to know, okay, this is out of my scope. And so let me refer you out to a lactation specialist. Here are 3 that I have. You know what I mean? You see which one is the best suit for you. A mom, she may need some major self-care because every pregnancy is different and so is every delivery. And here's the thing, you get prepped for postpartum, but you just don't know if you're going to have tears, if you're going to end up having a C-section. And so the more you prep, the better it is because, again, you'll be dealing with postpartum care, newborn care, breastfeeding. And I do things in 3s. And I also say that 3 threes is the other thing. When you're in the midst of that, you have a choice. And it's really gangster. You have a choice. You have to decide, one, am I going to, in every 2 hours, am I going to rest? Am I going to bathe? Am I going to eat? You know what I mean? And those are really hard decisions to make in that space. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And having a postpartum doula just coming in for 1 to 3 hours a day or 3 times a week can be a game changer, especially if you're scheduling your time appropriately. I found that now that everybody is educated over the course of the last 3 to 4 years about what a birth doula does,
Right.
I couldn't even schedule the amount of people that was contacting me in a week.
Wow, impressive.
Yeah, it was a busy year and it was busy time. And this is part of why I took the postpartum training. And that was 2 months after I did the birth training, because my family lives in New York.
Mm-hmm.
My mother lives in New York. She was working at the time. She couldn't take off to come down here to support me.
Right.
She tried with the first one and she stayed for a few days, but I was not able to have that support. And on my third child, I struggled with postpartum depression and did not even know it was happening. I was still showing up as a strong Black woman. And my husband was clueless, as most men are. When we have babies, let's keep it a band. You know what I mean? Unless they're educated. And that's another thing that I do as a postpartum doula. I look back and reflect on my experiences, and that's what I bring forth in the space. So I'm really big on educating dad too.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Are you in my head right now? I have a question like, how is a postpartum doula? How can we support the partner?
Oh yeah,
boyfriend, whatever you are.
I show them. I tell them how to support. You know what I mean? And even now that I learn every birth, I learn more and more and more. The more experience I get, the more I'm able to show up and know what to do and know how to be effective and know how to stand in the gap. And I was seeing that dads were not really showing up for some of these moms. Some of my dads were on the scope showing up powerfully. And then on the other end, it doesn't make them bad dudes. Yeah. You know what I mean? It just was just like, okay, bruh, she's struggling. Like she straight has tears in her eyes. Can you grab something? You're sitting there playing video games. Like, can you grab something? You're on Instagram. Like, can you do something? I had to really say to a brother, you know what I mean? When I left out the door, I said, I need you to disconnect from your phone. She needs you right now. And she shouted out a hallelujah. You know what I mean? She was like, hallelujah. You know what I mean? Like, thank you. I needed somebody to say that. I didn't know what was going on in their home. She didn't share it with me, but I felt it. And so you do have to go into these spaces. You have to be intuitive and you have to really know the balance of being a professional, but also being honest and being truthful, because it doesn't help to plant a smile on your face and not really tell anybody the truth, because then mom is suffering. So now as I move forward during my prenatals, I'm educating dad as well. Okay. And with my postpartum clients, I talk to dad as well, and I include him in it, and I tell him, give him suggestions on how he can show up. After she finishes, dads are great birthers. So after she finishes breastfeeding, go ahead and let her go get some me time. Let her go to the bathroom, clean herself up, take your shirt off, birth the baby, walk the baby, birth the baby, do skin to skin, you know? And in doing skin to skin with dad, I learned even this year, because I'm always learning, that it helps build the microbiome of the baby's stomach, the skin to skin with the dad, or just skin to skin in general, but skin to skin with the dad helps that. So there's so many ways that a man can show up, but, you know, I think over the course of history, they were allowed to, you know, it was woman's work. It was, you know what I mean? It was not something that they were included, and it wasn't inclusive as it pertained to men. And so now the world is set up differently. We do not have women coming to the bedside of women like that when they give birth, like they used to back in the day. When people will live in California, their family will be in New York. They'll live in Georgia, their family, you know what I mean? Their family will be in Texas. And folks are not retiring like that at 62 and 63. These moms and these dads, they're young and they still have to go to work, and they can't take off weeks and months and things like that, like women used to do. So we have to restructure what postpartum looks like for a mother in 2021 and 2000.
So I have a question. I think we spoke about it before, about that controversy about Black people having or hiring a doula. There was something on Twitter the other day, this influencer who I do follow. She's been pretty transparent about her journey in pregnancy and wanting a doula from birth to even after. And she made a video and people were like, the doula came in at, let's say 8 p.m. Let's say between 8 and 10 p.m. and left at 6 a.m. And she was like, you know, once her postpartum doula comes at night, she retreats to her bedroom and, she has me time for that, let's say the next 10 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And she got a lot of flack for that. It's like, you're missing bonding with your child and breastfeeding during these hours. So what are you taking having, I guess, overnight doulas and
I think,
getting that time?
I think that sounds more like a night nurse versus a postpartum doula.
Right.
My biggest thing with my clients is I'm not here to hinder you. I'm here to empower you. So if you, again, I'm not the help. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm not the help. There's a specific role that I'm playing. And granted, some people need more support than others. You know what I mean? Yeah. A lot of times these are women that are powerhouses. These are CEOs. These are women that have big careers. They can run a business. They can run an organization. They can do these super professional jobs, but they have difficulty with, after they give birth, connecting with their children. Right. So what is the word I'm looking for? Because I can't find the word, but I always say it. It's not coming to me. But it's the opposite of empowering. I'm not here to enable you. You know what I mean? Okay. I'm not here to enable you. I'm here to empower you. So I have a package that I have, and I feel like the package is significant, where you get 5 days, right? A minimum of 3 hours a day. Okay. So you can spread that out consecutively. So you can have it for a week, have me for a week, Monday through Friday, or you can spread it all over. Now, once we get to the end of that, you know what I mean? I evaluate, and we evaluate where you are, and we see, if you need more help, that's fine. Usually those are my C-section moms. You know what I mean? Okay. But if you, and not that I don't want the money, you know what I mean? Because I want the money, but it's bigger than money. This work is hard work. You know what I mean? So again, I want to empower you. Why do you feel like you need so much support? I had a request come through. A woman wanted 40 hours a week, and it was going to be nice. It was going to be some guap. But my first question was, well, why does she feel like she needs that much time? So I'm not judging anybody. I understand that motherhood could be scary for people, but we have to understand that a night nurse, I do feel like mom is going to miss out on bonding. I do agree that mom will miss out on bonding. Mom will miss out on educating herself because it's an experience. And if we know anything, for me, experience has always been my best teacher. You know what I mean? You can get all the degrees you want, but the school of hard knocks, you're going to have the PhD. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you're going to come out with some real good stuff. You know what I mean? And, we look at people that we may consider failures, but they have a lot to educate us on. You know what I mean? Through experience, even if it's not to do what the hell they did. You know what I mean? So I'm not here to judge anybody, but I think there is a difference between a night nurse and a postpartum doula. Yeah, that's been a hot topic the last few weeks. But I'm also not one to really jump on all them hot topics. I feel like everybody has an opinion now. And so I'm over it. I'm over that too. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Leave people alone, mind your business. And you know what I mean? If that's what she feels like she needs to do, then that's what she feels like. That's her prerogative. Right. Everything is not up for community discussion. So how can us, let's say, as a postpartum doula... Can I ask you, though? May I ask you how you feel about that?
To be honest, I'm neither here nor there. It's like, it's everybody's business.
Right.
That's what you want to do, then you do it. That's your money, not my money.
Right.
That's been spent.
Right. Exactly.
If you think you need that help, then...
And can I say one more thing? I do feel like that... I feel like if you can afford it, I do think that it's good to hire help. I'm not against that.
Yeah.
I mean, lactation specialist, masseuse. If you can afford it, yeah. Shout out to my girl, Crystal. Masseuse. What else am I? Nutritionist.
Yeah.
Meal prep. I encourage my clients, if you can afford it, to do it. If you cannot, that's fine. You have to figure out a way to do it separately. But there are creative ways that you can do that. Yeah. You can put it on your registry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There is, meal train. You can ask the auntie. I always tell my clients, ask the auntie that makes the good pot of greens. Like, auntie, can you bring me a pot of greens so I can start freezing it? Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. I also encourage my clients during their nesting period. That is an innate period during pregnancy. When you get to that point, that is like your clock saying, okay, switch on. We're in nesting. We're going to get the nursery together. That's cute. We're going to get all that together. That's cute. But also prepare for postpartum so that when you only have to focus on newborn care, postpartum care, and breastfeeding, you're not worrying about who's cooking breakfast, who's cooking lunch, who's making dinner. You know what I mean? That type of thing. Because you really can't afford the time or the headspace to really worry about that in the first 6 weeks.
Well, for all you mamas listening, expecting, soon to be planning, make sure, all these cute outfits that you put on the registry, you can add like, your nutritionist, lactation specialist, doula. That's the thing I see going around.
Massage therapist.
Yes. Herbalist, everything.
All of that.
Just make sure you guys add it. Well, for me personally, when I saw, I was like, what is the scope of a doula versus a baby nurse? So what's the difference? Or a night nurse? I was just like, it's her money, she can afford it. I know she can afford it. Why?
Yeah, but I would not call that a postpartum doula. I would call that a night nurse. Right. And I'm not doing that.
The real deal, guys. The real deal. All right. As a postpartum doula, how can we offer emotional support? I know that's one of our things that we do. How can we offer emotional support? And then, because again, we're not therapists.
I'm not a therapist.
How can we identify when we need to refer?
I refer out, but I also give a lot of my clients I love the millennials because y'all are just dope. Y'all are so informed and on it. A lot of my clients, shout out to my clients, I love y'all. They have therapists, you know what I mean, already situated. They have couples therapists there situated, which I think you need. No, real talk. Yeah. A baby will strain a relationship, period. You know what I mean? Who's going to check me?
Yeah.
A baby will strain a relationship. It will. I've experienced it. You don't know. First of all, relationships are challenging. People come with their own bags, right? And then you add a whole baby to it. Dad sometimes feels like, well, why am I not getting attention? Like all types of stuff show up in that place, in that space. It's a lot. So I just think that one of the things that I do is I encourage my moms to journal. And I know that may sound really like with everything I got to do, how am I going to journal? It doesn't have to be a long book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But put it by your bed. Your journal can also double as where you're making notes of, I breastfed at this time. And it's that and the fourth. You might just say, I feel like crap today. I'm pissed. Right. You know what I mean? Nobody showed up. This, that, and the fourth. My friend called and asked me for something and I needed help. You could just vent and it just could be 5 lines. You know what I mean?
Conversations outside of the baby. Because I think when you have a newborn, how's the baby? Well, what's my life before I had this, this baby? So you want to make sure you're having conversations.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And that's what I want to say too. Like check in on your postpartum friends, like for real. And I know it sounds cute, but nobody wants to hear, I'm not here for you. I'm here for the baby. Like that doesn't feel good. Yeah, that doesn't feel good. First of all, you got to understand that emotionally, you have been the center of attention. You've been this cute little glowing thing and your face is so fat and you got the baby bump and everybody's like catering to you. And then instantly that's all gone. You know what I mean? And then you trying to, people are telling you about icicle pads because you have tears and you trying to, you could barely get up. You barely are washing your tail. You don't have time to do anything with your hair. You know what I mean? So I just really think that during your pregnancy, I really feel as if you should really use that time wisely. I feel like the pregnancy and the birth is an initiation. You know what I mean? Yeah. The pregnancy is helping you to really, as a woman, tune into your body, which we don't do anymore. We rely on doctors and outside sources to tell us what's going on inside of our body. So pregnancy is like your wake-up call. So now you are at this point, you are learning your body and why is this doing that? And learning how to ask your body, well, why am I feeling tired? Or why am I feeling weak right now? What did I eat? Did I drink enough water? And then your initiation is the birth. You know what I mean? Because when you go through transition, it's very primal. It's like, okay, if you haven't had a lot of interventions, you feel everything and your body is telling you everything that's going on. And then after that, you have been initiated. You are a mother. And what that means that now you have passed the test of understanding your body. So when your body is talking to you in that state, you still have to listen. You still have to drink water. You still have to eat nutritious foods, because if not, your breast milk may suffer. But these things, if you're not resting, you're not hydrated, you're not getting nutritional foods, then that can also spiral you out into postpartum depression and take your baby blues take it to a whole nother level.
Okay, so again, I think you're trying to be in my head, but that's fine. I'll take it. But all right, so as a doula, as someone who's gone through pregnancy and all that stuff, what's the difference for those who don't know between the baby blues and postpartum depression, and how long do they last? Because we have the 6-week checkup for actual postpartum, and that can go on for like almost a year. So how can one know, hey, it's just baby blues, it's going to last for like 3, 6 weeks, 2 months, but I have postpartum depression that's going to be here for an entire year?
Right. I think it's different for everyone. Baby blues, to me, kind of showed up for me. And when because that was the first time I was a mom on my first son, where what happened was the way I went into baby blues was the first time I had to go to the grocery store and leave the house with my baby. And I did not prepare. I did not feed him before I left. And it really hit me that when I got to the grocery store, he started hollering. Folks was looking at me like my nerves was bad. And it hit me in that moment, like, you could never leave the house again without packing this bag and making sure that if you're not with this baby, somebody else has to be with this. This baby is going to have to be with you everywhere you go. And that was a very hard reality for me. It did not stay. I love my baby. It did not stay long. I could shift the energy, but I think it's just like baby blues for me was just like reality check. Whereas depression was just like, I was feeling like really stuck in this real space of just sadness. And it was heavy. It was just very heavy. And I didn't have time to acknowledge it. So it just got worse and worse and worse. And the depression really started to affect things within the household, other household members, finances, my ability to be clear, my relationship, it was all of that. And you can't really say. To me, I think everybody's experience is different. So I can't say how long it will last. I feel like baby blues, it will be fairly short term. But if you find yourself going from those reality checks and now you are constantly in a state of sadness and darkness, then I definitely feel like you should reach out to someone that can help, because it can affect your home and the way you show up as a mother as well, and the way you parent as well. I was parenting during depression. I had other children. So I was parenting from a place of fear. I was parenting and it affected them as well. Yeah. You know what I mean? I was the type of mother that showed up at school and was above and beyond. But at the time, my 8-year-old, he was really acting out. I don't know if it was because I had another baby, but I remember I just did not have the energy to go to like one of his assemblies. And that really affected him because he was used to me showing up so powerful as a mother. And it was just, and it made me feel guilty. And that's another thing. Mom guilt will come up during depression. And that's a whole bag in itself too. Yeah.
Well, I think the message here, guys, is for not to be afraid. Oh, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid, or tell someone. And, I've held space for my moms, to talk to me, but I definitely understand what my scope of work is. And I don't have the tools. I have the tools as a mother and a doula and a trainee and as a woman. But outside of that, that's not my thing.
And I think, as African American or as Black women, I like to say, I think for us, when it comes to asking for help, that we're not supposed to have help because we're not deemed worthy of having help.
And then our mothers kind of put that in us too. They raised us to be strong and to be 10 steps ahead. You know what I mean? So it's just like, you feel, because even when I told my grandmother, grandma's 90 years old. Well, both of my grandmothers are alive. Well, I have 3, but one just turned 93 yesterday.
Wow.
When I told my 90-year-old grandmother I was a doula, her thing was like, why do these women need that? You know what I mean? I had my babies. I pushed my babies out. I didn't need none of that. And I was just like, well, I don't know if you recall, but, Black women could have used, I'm sure that there were some ways that you could have used some support, some education, something like that, but her whole thing was like, oh, here we go. But that's I felt like that was coming from that whole strong Black woman thing. And then we also do that in our household. And so then our husbands or our partners are looking at us and they're like, oh, you strong. So they don't even know what to look for. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm dying here, but they're like, they don't,
got this.
You got it. You got it. Keep going, slugger. You know what I mean? So it's just like, and it's just like, how,
that is so real. That is so real. But anyway, for doulas now, let's just shift to something a little bit lighter. I'm getting emotional, you know me.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I don't know you, but now I know.
But for those who are considering becoming a doula, any advice for those thinking, oh, hey, I'm hearing about this word doula all the time. I want to be of assistance.
Well, if you are Black or African American, one of the things that I was very grateful for, I was very happy that I went through Doula, Womb-Wise. It was a great training and it was very professional. And she really gave me a great outline. But I realized that showing up for women in general and showing up for Black women were two different things. So if you are a Black woman and you are looking to enter into birth work, to go into spaces where women that look like you are teaching birth work, so you can understand the cultural needs of your community. You know what I mean? Because it is different than other communities. And if you are going to be serving women in the African American community, then you need to know what that looks like and what are some of the challenges that we deal with. And that was where I learned about the mortality rate for Black women.
All right, one more question in regards to that. For me, I have no kids yet. Emphasis on the yet. But I'm a doula. And sometimes I feel like, I'm unequipped to... So how can I, speaking to me, gain confidence as a doula without, as a childless doula, as they call it?
I think experience and continue educating yourself. And at the end of the day, there are doctors that never had babies that deliver babies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are midwives that never had babies but deliver babies. You know what I mean? Same difference. The thing about you, and I have other sisters, shout out to Cookie and to my sis, Quita B, they do the same work and they show up so powerfully because the level, you will educate yourselves in a totally different way. And for what you lack in experience, I think you fill in that gap with education. So just imagine how powerful you are going to be when you do give birth. You understand? You are going to be a force to reckon with. You know what I mean? Because now you got this other piece too. Yeah. So you have this education that you can bring to your household, to your family, to your birth space, to your postpartum experience.
Right.
You know what I mean? You all adult. And so stand in your authority. You are a woman. You know what I mean? I had another sister, I love her, she's so dope. We were all wearing shirts that said, I make liquid gold or something like that. She was like, I feel like I'm fronting. I'm like, no, if you want to make liquid gold, sis, you can. You just ain't making it right now. You know what I mean? But if you got the ability, you have the power, your body works. If that's what you want to do, you can do it when you are ready.
Yeah.
When you are ready. So it does not make you less of a doula. It does not make you less of a woman in my eyes. You know what I mean? And I think that anyone that hires a doula that has not had children, they are going to be empowered. And I find that we attract who we are, right? So for me, I didn't have confidence at first because I'm not really a medical person. I could be nerdy, but I'm more of a intuitive, a nurturer. And when I became a doula, I wanted to become a doula. That's it. I did not want to become a midwife. A lot of my peers came in with me. They are moved on to midwifery school. They're midwife students. And so when I first started, I attracted 3 nurses. And I asked them, I said, why did you choose me? They said, because I know that the medical stuff, I needed somebody intuitive and who is nurturing and who knows birth, who's a mom. So for you, I say, you may get that person that is already in tune with the intuitive and the nurturing thing, but they might want you to bring that to them, but also the educational component. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so you attract who needs you.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that was some fun.
Mm-hmm. Let's have fun. Let's have fun.
Tell us about your most memorable bird or your favorite bird and your least favorite. I'm sure. I mean, all birds are.
I don't know. I can't even do that. I have magical birds. And then I got sis here. She might beat me up if I don't say her birth was the magical one. All my births were so magical. They all transform me. But I will say my favorite births are home births and birth center births, only because it's a totally different vibe. It's a totally different vibe because you don't have the beeping. You don't have the distractions. It's very, very organic and it's very, very natural. I had a birth recently this year where I cried. It really took me out because my mom worked so hard, and I'm telling you, she worked. She did all the things she was the perfect client. I mean, she hiked. She ate well. She did all the things. She drank her water. She did everything. She did the birth center stuff. She was on point. You know what I mean? Did everything. And at the end of it, she had to have a C-section. It was unavoidable.
Yeah.
But I cried because I know
she did the work.
She did the work. She did it all. She did everything. And so I had to release after that one. And I had another doula who came to doula me, who I referred out. She was, shout out to Corey. She was the encapsulator. And she had to remind me. She said, Nay, is the baby okay? I said, yes. She said, is mom okay? I said, yes. She said, that's what we're here for. That's the outcome that we're looking for. She had to remind me. So I can't really say one particular birth or not. I have had magical experience, and I'm so grateful for the clients that I've attracted. I've not had one bad client. Please, God, don't send me no bad clients. To test me, but they have all been magical experiences. But my favorites have been home births and birth center births, because when a doula walks into a space, no matter how agreeable she walks into the space, just her presence alone before she even opens her mouth, sometimes there's a combative energy. You know what I mean? And it's not just with doctors or the other persuasion. It's also with brown people too, and before you even open your mouth, you can smile, you can introduce yourself. It's already a combative energy. And most doulas are intuitive. And they can feel because they are working at the capacity of a healer, no matter where they are in that journey. And you pick up on it, And so I don't like that, but I know that's why we have to be there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So my more magical experiences have been home births and birth centers.
All right. So what are 5, as we wrap up, what are 5 interesting things about being a doula?
That's a good one. You're going to make me work for it, sis. All right. Well, first thing was I was scared about blood because I was like, I told my girlfriend, I said, I just spent this money for this training. Let's see if I wasted it, because she's a nurse. Shout out to Zaire. She died. I said, here I go to this first birth. It's not as bloody and messy and as I thought it would be. The TV makes it seem, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, another thing is I didn't, when the mom, you don't focus on, the gross stuff, like women gonna poop in the pool. We just scoop it up. We scoop it up and we keep going. You know what I mean? It's so funny because in prenatal visits, moms are scared about, you seeing them naked and their breasts and stuff. Ain't nobody looking at that. She don't even care after a while. Yeah. So that's like the third thing. Let's see. What's number 4? I'm gonna really smack myself after this because I'm gonna have 5 and I'm gonna be like, that was what I should have said. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we can take it.
I think that one of the things is that if you're advocating for self-care and for a woman to take care of herself, you need to be displaying that in your life as well.
Say that part again. Say it again.
Yeah. If you're advocating for self-care and taking care of yourself and telling a mom to take care of herself, that you have to be mimicking that in your life as well. You know,
I love that.
You got to practice what you preach. Yeah. And not only that, doulas need doulas. You know what I mean? So just find you a great group of women that will also hold space for you. Like my sis did when I broke down and I had a hard time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When she had to remind me of things that I already knew, but sometimes emotions and things really just sidetrack you. And just her reminding me is what I needed in that time. And it just got me together.
Yeah.
So doulas need doulas. Healers need healers.
Healers need healers. Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you.
Thank you for
for inviting me into your house. So guys, this is my first time recording the podcast in person. So that's a feat. So thank you. Before we go, tell the people where we can find you or what you do, especially here in the Atlanta community.
Okay, I am at Doula Yane. That's DOULAYNA. You can find me on my website at, it's very simple, www. My kids died, I don't have to say that. You can find me at...
Oh, really? The way I work right now?
Yeah, that's the way. You don't have to do the www.
You can't keep up.
Yeah. So you can find me at YaneEvans.com. And yeah, and you can email me at doulayane@gmail.com. And I'll be here.
We'll put it all in the show notes. So guys, make sure you reach out because I'm trying to,
You're not trying, you doing it.
Yeah.
You ain't trying, you doing. So.
Well, thank you for joining me. And of course, I'll be back.
Yes.
If the time permits, if you
because once I get this certification, I'm gonna talk to you about how to move this body.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Yes, my pleasure.
Well, thank you. For real.